wait till I can see myself. Dude, I'm live on a video that says Colts versus Jaguars recap. All right. All right, so we're live right now on a weird channel. Hey, Jason, can you say something real quick?
Check, check.
Let me see if I can hear. All right, so something's weird right now. I'm live on a different video that says Colts versus Jaguars recap. I'll change the title at a later time, but we are finally live. So we'll just go ahead and get through with this, guys. I'm live. I can see myself, yeah. All right, so I got with me Jason from another Jags pod on. Hey, man, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, for sure, man. This is always a treat to be on your channel.
Yeah, had a little bit of technical issues on my end. I apologize about that, and I apologize for everyone joining. Everyone was extremely patient. But yeah, man, we got the NFL draft coming up. Sorry, my girlfriend's over here waving at me. But, all right. But we have the NFL draft coming up, man. 2 days away. I don't know about you, Jason, but this is my favorite, really, sports day of the year just because it's so unique. We have plenty of days where there's football games, but really there is nothing like day one of the NFL draft where, we see a bunch of GMs show their cards when it comes to what they're thinking on the inside. Like, what are your thoughts about really like day one of the NFL draft and just the draft in general?
I mean, I think we're all like starving for sports at the moment, so we'll really take anything at this point. And I think the draft is already, like you said, one of my favorite times of the year. You get to kind of guess and see what the GMs will do. You get to kind of play GM for a couple months leading up to the draft. So I'm just super excited about, especially with the Jags having so many picks coming up to rebuild the roster. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, man, 12 picks in this coming draft. I've had you on the channel before. I had you on the day before week one, before we played Kansas City, and a lot has happened since then. Most notably, a whole entire NFL season, as well as us trading away everybody who has any bit of trade value. What's your current thoughts about really the Jaguars situation, like heading into this draft?
Well, I mean, I think they took a risk by drafting a bunch of talented players that have personality. And although that was great for the fans for a couple years, especially 2017, now we're kind of having to deal with the consequences of drafting guys like Jalen Ramsey and Telvin Smith and Yannick Ngakoue and Dante Fowler. Guys like that are real outspoken and opinionated, and now we kind of have to live with those consequences. But, at least the good news is that there's a lot of good players in this draft, and we have so many needs that almost like every year for Dave Caldwell, it's almost impossible to mess up this pick.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, man. Like the Jaguars right now, I mean, I'm not feeling super confident about this season, although I really think that the ceiling for our team, I think that this draft is extremely exciting just because we can put ourselves in a position that we could potentially be somewhat good. And I think our ceiling is barely sneaking into the playoffs. Is that likely? I mean, probably not. Let's be real if we're going to be completely honest with ourselves. But, but we have a bunch of draft picks, like you said. Last year in the first round, we got a double-digit sack guy. We got a cornerstone at the right tackle spot. I mean, if we can repeat some of the success from last year's draft, we could set ourselves up in a pretty good position. But the way it looks is that the Jaguars are. I don't know. I always say it's impossible to tank in the NFL because the last couple circumstances in 2017. I mean, it's possible to tank, I think, but not get the number one overall pick. In 2017, everyone thought the Jets were going to be tanking for a number one pick. They wound up picking number 6. The same thing with the Miami Dolphins. And 2019, I think they're picking like number 6 this year. So when it comes to saying like, oh, the Jaguars are tanking, they're not going to do anything. Like, I don't know. I think that they're setting themselves up for a good draft position, but it's hard to say that they're really tanking for Trevor.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. Would you be okay if we tanked, got the 2nd pick, and drafted Justin Fields? How would you feel about that?
I don't know, man. I want Trevor Lawrence. I think it's like almost Trevor Lawrence or bust at some point. I mean, I like Justin Fields. I really do, but like when it comes to like Trevor Lawrence, he is like as sure of a quarterback pick as I've ever seen. Like I think in my lifetime, I mean, the most sure picks have been like Andrew Luck. And the closest thing to Andrew Luck has been this year with like Joe Burrow. Since the number one picks have been Kyler Murray, have been what's it called? What's the dude? Cam Newton, like some guys like that. But I don't think anybody is as can't miss as Trevor Lawrence. What are your feelings about it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And if you were to tell me to tank the season and we would get Trevor Lawrence, I would be on board for that 100%. But in reality, like you said, teams try to tank all the time. Every year there's teams tanking, but only one team gets first. So I just don't feel like that's a safe bet to hedge that you're going to get the first pick for Trevor Lawrence. That's why I like to look at the question is, are you okay with these other quarterbacks? So with that's why I'm never a fan of tanking. Like the NBA, that's one thing. Like you're going to get some players that can contribute, but in the NFL, there's always just one dude that is going to really, take your team to the next level, like Joe Burrow or the way Andrew Luck fell to the Colts. Like, you have to be pretty lucky for that to happen. And I don't like playing those odds, but, maybe I'm in the minority with that.
Like, I just feel like with the Jaguars' luck, like, even if we did really bad, like, I just don't feel like we're going to end up with the number one pick. We never had the number one pick in our franchise's history, and we've had, I think like 11 out of the last 10 drafts we've been drafting in the top 10. None of those have been the number one pick. And I just feel like, even with how it is, like, I feel like, in 2013, when Dave Caldwell came aboard, we really stripped the roster down. We got rid of everybody. We had barely any good players. We're not that bad this year. I mean, we have a double-digit sack guy in Josh Allen. We have a 1,000-yard receiver in DJ Chark. We have a better quarterback in Gardner Minshew than we had in Blaine Gabbert or Chad Henne. And we have just some pieces around the board. So we're a better team than that. And, like, I just feel like when it's all said and done, I think there's a real possibility we draft top 5. But I just don't know if we're going to finish with the worst overall record.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue. It's like you tank and then you don't get Trevor Lawrence. It's like a double waste of a season. So I'm never a fan of that. That's why I'm always a big fan of drafting the best available player that you can possibly draft. And I honestly think, realistically, the best pick that realistically we could get would be Isaiah Simmons, whether that be a trade up or he falls to us. And I know that he doesn't really fit into the Jaguars scheme and who we've already signed as a free agent, but how would you feel if the Jags drafted Isaiah Simmons?
Like with me, with that situation is I feel like a player is going to fall to us somehow, because players always fall. I mean, last year Josh Allen fell to us, and you always get a couple quarterback picks that go, and then you have a couple of teams pick guys that you didn't really see coming. This year I feel like, honestly, I feel like Isaiah Simmons, if that's the guy that falls, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed, just because it's hard to see where, he's the only position he would really play as free safety for us right now, unless they bump Ronnie Harrison over, because you have Joe Schobert, you paid him a bunch of money at middle linebacker. You have Miles Jack, we're paying him a bunch of money to pay weak side linebacker. You're not going to draft a guy in the top 10 to be a strong side linebacker to play less than 30% of snaps. So, I mean, if you draft Isaiah Simmons, where would you play him?
For me personally, I would play him at the linebacker position on like early downs and the 4-3 formations when we're in a three linebacker set. And then when we go to nickel sets, like you said, move Ronnie Harrison over to free safety, move Isaiah Simmons into strong safety, because I see Isaiah Simmons as like a Derwin James kind of mold. And I was huge on Derwin James 2 years ago. Like, I wanted him in this defense because I knew the type of player that he is. And I see a lot of that in Isaiah Simmons. I think Isaiah Simmons is better. Like, his combine numbers were through the roof. I haven't seen someone come out in a long time that can play D-end or safety. Like, that's crazy if you think about it. Like, he can play literally anywhere. And that's just the type of guys that I want on my defense. I want just positionless players that can play anywhere, because coaches are good about changing formations and moving things around. So I'm a huge Isaiah Simmons fan, but I understand that that's not very realistic.
See, I get scared about players that, you say, oh, they can play any position on the field, because sometimes you draft these kind of guys like from college, and, they're guys like I take a look at Dante Fowler Jr. Dante Fowler dominated at Florida. They lined them up all over the place, but then they get in and they try to focus on one position, and they're just not technically sound at those spots once they focus on one thing. So, when I look at Isaiah Simmons, I almost think of him as like a weak side linebacker, as a guy that just like chases the ball down, as almost like playing as pure of an athlete as can be. So you're saying if we draft Isaiah Simmons, is he going to be on the field 100% of the time, or only in nickel downs?
No, I would say he plays linebacker in 4-3, and then he plays safety in nickel.
So when he's playing, so who are you going to kick? Joe Schobert off the field in nickel coverages?
No, I think in nickel you kick you kick Jared Wilson off the field in nickel. So you move Harrison over, and you bring him in to replace Wilson down in the box as like your box safety, or as because he can cover the slot, and he can cover tight ends really well. But what about this? What about switching to a 3-4 defense? What if we switched to a 3-4 defense? Because then, even though the lineup, the pre-snap alignments are still kind of the same, at least now you have an excuse to having more linebackers on the field.
Honestly, it's looking more and more like we will somehow switch over, even though Todd Wash, I think he said last year that as long as he's coaching the team, it's going to be a 4-3 defense. But, more and more teams are switching to a 3-4, and it's really similar in a lot of ways. And even last year, we had a lot of 3-4 looks, especially with Josh Allen stood up a lot of the time, kind of in a 2-point stance. But nowadays it's almost like they have a lot of hybrid 4-3, 3-4 stuff. But so your ideal situation, what you're saying is you would want Isaiah. Is that like the dream of you, or would you rather, or are you being realistic and saying, okay, Okudah probably won't fall to number 9, or would you take Isaiah Simmons over guys like Derrick Brown, Okudah, or any of the other guys that are being highlighted?
So I would, for me, there's 4 people in this draft that I would trade up for, and the Jaguars have a lot of picks, so I don't see them not. Caldwell loves trading up. Usually it's in the 2nd or 3rd round, but Caldwell loves trading up. And with the picks he has stockpiled this year, I have a feeling that this is like his chance to move up in the 1st round, which isn't a chance that's opportunity to like everybody. So I think that he will move up in the 1st round and these are the 4 players that I think are worth it: Joe Burrow, Chase Young, Isaiah Simmons, and Jeff Okudah. I think those 4 players are worthy of trading up, and if I'm the Jags GM, I'd trade up to get one of those 4 players. I don't know what Dave will do, but that's what I would do, because those are the 4 players I think in this draft that are absolutely generational players, and that will be starters and Pro Bowlers for years to come. And those are the guys that I want on my team.
It's interesting you say 4 players, because Dave Caldwell actually said that if there are 4 players that are available at 9, we are going to run to the podium and take them. So, you can pretty much say, I think, you can kind of lock in Joe Burrow and Chase Young as 2 of those guys, but, those guys are going 1-2, maybe 1-3, but those guys are definitely be gone by then. And it's interesting to know the rest, because, most mock drafts have the Jaguars taking Derrick Brown at number 9, and I think that's really almost like a dream scenario for me, just because when I look at it, Derek Brown is really outside Chase Young. He's like the only defensive lineman I would actually take at number 9, just because Kinlaw, he shows a lot of good things, but just he seems like one of those players to me that is just so physically dominating at the college football level, but he has so much to work on technique wise to where in the NFL you can no longer rely on just being powerful and just being physically dominating. Like, you have to develop different pass rushing techniques, or just getting through the blocker type of stuff. And I saw him like a couple times on tape, like he would get off the ball and he would like lower his shoulder into guys, and I'm like, this is just like, for a first round pick, for a guy that you're supposed to take in a top 10, like that just worries me, because he isn't there yet. And I can't imagine coaches are in the film room or at practice saying, okay, go in there and lower your shoulder into him. It's just, obviously there's stuff he has that you can't coach, but Kinlaw is just a huge risk to me to take at number 9. I wouldn't mind him for like a trade back thing. And honestly, the Jags very well may take him at number 9, and I wouldn't be too mad about it. I'm not someone that when a GM drafts somebody, I get super mad just because they watch a lot more film than me, and I almost had to trust their viewpoint on things. But Kinlaw would kind of worry me at number 9. So me, like, I really want Derek Brown at number 9 if if like Okuda or something like that is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on about Kinlaw. Watching his film, honestly, he reminds me of like a literal bull, like the animal. Like, he just like wrecks in, like just flailing, and does a lot of damage, but like has no technique. He doesn't do a lot of things that you want to teach technical D linemen to do. And I mean, you can't teach his size. I mean, he's huge, he's high effort, but I think you're spot on at 9. It's just a little too high. Here's my concern with Derek Brown, and I like Derek Brown, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And he's a good guy, like off the field. Like, he's won all sorts of like awards for being like a good person. And
he came back for senior year too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things about him like that you like as a team player. But here's the issue: is interior defensive linemen. Unless you're Gerald McCoy, unless you're Sue, then you really aren't making that big of a difference to the other team. Interior defensive linemen get double teamed a lot. They get down blocked a lot, and they eat up blocks that allow your speed rushers to get sacks and tackles for losses, which is good. But is that worth the number 9 pick when you could get a guy in free agency, or you can get a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round to eat up blocks? Like, that's the only issue with interior defensive linemen. Like, look at Quinnen Williams last year for the Jets. I feel like he was the exact same player as Derek Brown coming out. A lot of people wanted him. A lot of people thought he was going to be that like beast of an interior defensive lineman, and he had like a not so great season last year with the Jets. And there's a lot of things that come with that, with playing with the Jets. But interior defensive lineman is always a high risk pick, especially in the top 10.
Yeah, and that is the thing, because like, obviously, if you're not like a top tier defensive tackle, you're just kind of a guy. But man, like, if he could be like an Ndamukong Suh or Gerald McCoy, or I'm not even gonna try to compare him to an Aaron Donald, but if he can be in that echelon, like, those are game changers. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they don't win the Super Bowl without Warren Sapp back in the day. And if you can bring in, and like, I think this guy has like all the tools. I think he'll be a hard worker. I mean, that's one thing that I loved about bringing in Josh Allen last year, because we've seen guys come in like Dante Fowler, kind of goofy. They come in there and like but you see Josh Allen come in. He has a wife, he has a kid. You know what I mean? He has another one on the way. You can tell like he's all there mentally, and you can tell like, look, I'm gonna be a beast at football, so I provide for my family. And like, I see a lot of that out of Derek Brown. It's almost a situation where it's like, look, if this guy fails, then it's not because he didn't work his ass off. It's because he just wasn't built for it. And I think like Derek Brown, I think he'd be a great selection, especially when it comes to the drop-offs at defensive tackle, and just with how bad the Jaguars were at stopping the run last year. Oh my gosh, we've got to do something to address that. And right now, say the situation comes where we draft like Jared Jeudy at number 9, and then at number 20, CJ Henderson falls there. We're getting out of the first round, and our defensive line is still horrible. who knows if you're to pick 4 starting defensive linemen, you have Josh Allen on one end, you have Dwan Smoot on the other end, and then
Ngakoue. Is Ngakoue playing next year? I guess he's not. Right?
At this point with Ngakoue, I mean, he would just look stupid to play. I mean, he needs to play because he hasn't earned enough money. Like, he's been playing on a 3rd round contract, but with all the shit that he's talked on, Twitter, talking about, and he gave Ronnie Harrison a birthday shout out, talking about, we're gonna be on other teams next year, but happy birthday to you. It's like you're making it all about yourself. And quick shout out to 4 On 4 Off with a $10 donation. He says he agrees with me about Derek Brown. And yeah, man, I mean, those are kind of my thoughts on Derek Brown. And also huge shout out to 4 On 4 Off for being a member of the channel. I introduced channel memberships this week. Some of the perks you guys get are, exclusive content. You get exclusive content from me, including like member only videos and different other perks. So you guys can join, that by just hitting the join button on the channel. Quick plug right there.
Can I pump some of yours real quick?
Yeah, man, go ahead.
Okay, hey, I was one of the first people to get a shirt, right? Like I was one of the first ones to get a shirt. Am I right?
Yeah, you were.
Those shirts are the most comfortable shirts of all time. Like, I don't know what fabric or material or who your provider was of those, but you need to buy those shirts, man, just for the material. I mean, the logo's cool too, but the material, man, I'm telling you, most comfortable shirt out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I wanted to make sure I didn't get one of those shirts that, like, if people are gonna pay money, I wanted to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. I didn't want to just give out a crap shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's comfortable. I wear mine all the time. I have several of them, obviously, just because, because I can. But but yeah, they are great. But yeah, so I guess we can back up just a little bit. I guess I dropped you off on the screen here. My video isn't working, but the audio is good, so that's all fine with me.
It's probably better that way.
Yeah, I don't think so. I had some people commenting on because I put our thumbnail out there, but now it's now my thumbnail for this one is Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew, and the title of this live stream is Colts versus Jaguars recap, season finally over. Once this stream ends in the archives, I'll have to change it all back to what it was. But people were thinking that in the thumbnail that both the pictures were of me until they took a closer look and realized that they're not both me. So that was kind of funny.
Long lost brothers, maybe.
Yeah, potentially, man. So with some of the things that the Jaguars have done, I guess we'll take a step back from the draft real quick. So with Leonard Fournette, like, what do you think about really everything that happened with Leonard Fournette? How all of a sudden he gets brought up for trade rumors this week. What are your thoughts on it? What kind of draft do you think we'll be able to get any kind of draft conversation for him? And just how good do you actually think Leonard Fournette is? Like is he an elite running back? Is he average running back? Like, what are your thoughts on everything like that?
I was surprised that the news came out about Fournette, because in my brain I was thinking, if they trade Fournette, who's still on a team-friendly deal and is still producing like actually a decent amount. I mean, I think he had like 1,100 yards last year. Like, I know he only had 2 touchdowns, but I mean he really contributed in the passing game last year, and he really played his ass off all year. And he's on a team-friendly deal. So my first thought was, if they're shopping him, then we must really be in tank mode if we're getting rid of guys like that for draft capital. I don't know what's going on. Caldwell does like to play head games with the league and other teams. I mean, he never tips his hand. He always has people leading to believe he's drafting different people than he is. So I think he does kind of play a little bit of that role. I don't know. I like Fournette. I like his charisma. I like the way he plays. I mean, he was injured most of his first couple of years here, and he came back from those injuries when most running backs don't. And I know he was drafted high, and that really ticks a lot of people off, is how high he was drafted. But if you're really trying to win next year, if you're really trying to set Gardner Minshew up with the best opportunity to win, you don't trade Leonard Fournette. But again, that goes back to what they're doing. I don't know if they're in tank mode, then throw it all out the window. It's all about Trevor Lawrence, right? So I mean, I like Fournette. But if we're in tank mode, I get the trade.
I mean, if we trade Leonard Fournette, then that is pretty much confirming that look, the Jaguars want to get the number one overall pick because that's 1,600 yards worth of offense you're going to have to replace. Between the rushing and passing game, the guy did so much for our offense last year. And if you trade him, I think the best value you would be able to get is a 4th round pick, if that. It's more likely, if we were to trade him, I would almost rather draft capital in 2021 because, man, we have enough draft capital as it is right now. Granted, in the first 3 rounds, we have 4 picks, and really the 5th, 6th, 7th round, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round is where, most of our draft picks are coming into place. So maybe we need some more picks, maybe in the top, 100 or whatever. But, if you were to, I would take, and a lot of people think that, a 4th round pick in a current draft is equal to a 3rd round pick in the next year's draft. So, I honestly wouldn't even, because at this point, I don't know if I want the Jaguars. It's going to be hard because, of course, when the game's drawn, I'll be actively rooting for them. But at the end of the day, if you don't win the Super Bowl, it's bust. You know what I mean? Going to the AFC Championship game in 2017, while it was a really fun year, we didn't win the Super Bowl. So it's, we don't hang any banners in the stadium. We don't get to wear any T-shirts or anything. It's all about winning the Super Bowl. And, with this year, the Jaguars, I don't think with the way the roster stands, we're going to win a Super Bowl. So, I almost wouldn't even mind trading Fournette and just riding through a bad season next year just because, it's at a point where the Jaguars are just trying to trade anybody for, anybody where their contract's running up, just try to see if they can get any kind of draft capital for anybody or trade compensation for anybody.
See, I would disagree. For me, the goal isn't winning the Super Bowl. Obviously, we all want to win the Super Bowl, but the goal is this sustained success. You look at teams all over the league that are good year in and year out. The Patriots, the Seahawks, the Steelers. That's what I want to be. I don't care if I win every year. Obviously, I want to win, but I want to be good every year. I want to go to the playoffs every year. And for me, that is whatever that takes, I want to do. And tanking rarely works. It worked for the Colts and Andrew Luck. They were very, very lucky, and they're in our division, so we get to see that every year. But in reality, tanking doesn't really work as well as people think. Look at all the teams that tank every year. Like you said, the Dolphins, the Browns, teams like that. They're tanking. The Bengals, they're tanking every year, and it's not about getting one good player. It's about doing the things that sustain success. And drafting for need and and trying to outsmart everybody is not the way you sustain success. You draft good players, you think for the future, you get good people in the locker room, you get good coaches, and I just don't know if we have all that.
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming on that. I just think that honestly, sustained success would be great because you even look at, you look around the league, you see some teams that, the Ravens, they are, they're pretty much good most every year. They may not go and win the Super Bowl all the time, but, if I could just go into a Jaguar season and, 5 of those seasons we have 3 playoff runs, man, that'd be fun because, 2017, while we didn't win the Super Bowl or anything, while it's disappointing, just the year it was, man, just seeing the Jaguars win, seeing us have meaningful games in December. Those games, the meaningful games for the Jaguars, if you go to the games, they're in September and October, and it is so hot. And when the weather finally gets good, it is we're sucked. We're out of it. So, it's, it would be great just to finally have put together some winning seasons. Get some sustained success. I think it all comes with finding the quarterback. I think Gardner Minshew did enough to earn another year, as a starting quarterback, and then in 2021 you can kind of figure out what you want to do. But it's going to be tough, especially if we don't fix the offensive line, because a quarterback, you got to give them time. I don't think they need really, because a good quarterback can make good out of his receivers, but you have to have an offensive line behind it. And as it is right now, I think there are some improvements that need to be made there. But we'll stick around that. Like with the offense, like I guess in the first round, like we'll go with this because this is a popular opinion by a lot of people. Would you be willing to draft a wide receiver at number 9 if a guy like Jerry Jeudy or whoever your wide receiver is available at that spot?
If you're asking me as a GM, I like it's a loaded question really because we don't know what Caldwell is thinking or doing. Caldwell did Shad Khan tell Caldwell he has one more year to figure it out, or did he tell Caldwell, I'm gonna let you kind of have a couple years to get this back on track, because that changes everything. If Caldwell is selecting players based on the future of the Jaguars, then I think he should go offense. If he's selecting players for his job, then he probably needs to go. I mean, quarterback, big time defensive player. Like it really depends on like what he's like where he's at with his job, which is frustrating as Jags fans because we have no clue and we have no insight. But if he is really has the interest of Minshew in mind, like if he's gonna let Gardner Minshew get a chance, and he needs to draft O-line or receiver. If he has his mindset on tanking, then he needs to go best available defensive player. It's hard. Like me as a GM, yeah, I would take a receiver. And honestly, I think Henry Ruggs III is the best receiver in the draft. And I love Jeudy, but I think Ruggs is going to be the best NFL player.
Yeah, and I'll get that back to that point in a minute. I do have a donation, $9.99 by Predator. He says, love your videos. I started as a bandwagon fan from the 2017 to 2018 season. Disgraceful, I know. I've stuck around. Realistically, how long do you think it will be until the Jags to be in playoff contention again? Me personally, I think we could be in playoff contention as soon as 2021. We have a lot of draft picks. Like if we get a really good draft this year, I mean, I look at the Buffalo Bills draft in 2019. They brought in guys like Dawson Knox at, tight end. They brought in guys like, they got Ed Oliver as, a defensive tackle. They got Devin Singletary. I mean, they had they have Cody Ford at right tackle. If we can get draft guys like that are huge, impactful players, we're going to sit there and say, okay, this is what we had out of our rookie class. We like this. We like that. Now going into 2021 free agency, we have a lot of money to spend. You can actually go out there and instead of getting Band-Aids like we did in 2020, just getting guys off the streets and giving some money to a middle linebacker, they can really spend some money at the positions. And then in the 2021 draft, you have 2 first-round picks again. So, I think as soon as 2021, we'll see what we have in Gardner Minshew. If not, we can go out there and get a good, a decent rookie quarterback. But in my opinion, I think we could be in playoff contention as soon as 2021. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Minshew, if Minshew is your starter and you give him, if you don't trade Fournette and you give him what you have now and you draft all defense, so basically take the team you have now and you give Gardner Minshew a shot, I think he wins you 4 to 6 games, and I don't think that gets you the first pick. So I don't think fans will be cool with him, but to be fair, he doesn't have a lot of help right now as far as weapons go. I think if you draft receivers, offensive linemen, you bring in a tight end, free agent tight end that can actually play on the end line rather than Eifert, who's more of a slot receiver, then I think Minshew can win you like 8 to 9, maybe 10 games. So it's tough because you don't know what they're going to do. I have a feeling they don't like Minshew. I have a feeling they're just kind of doing the Minshew thing for the fans next year. But I think Minshew ends up winning you 6 games on accident next year.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. Like I like Minshew, but he hasn't proved enough to me. And I know a lot of Jags fans, I know a lot on the channel, really believe in him. And I really do want to believe in him, but I also want to put a realistic cap on and say, look, I'm going for elite quarterback. I don't want Andy Dalton. I don't want Joe Flacco. I want a guy that really puts us over the top. I want a Russell Wilson to where, Russell Wilson, Seahawks have had some bad rosters, but they still get into the playoffs. You know what I mean? I want a quarterback that, even like Deshaun Watson in our own division. You know what I mean? That roster has been great, but he's leading to AFC South championships. We need a quarterback that can put us over the top like that. You know what I mean? And can Gardner Minshew do it? I mean, it's to be seen. We'll see what he can do in 2020. But I mean, in my opinion, I don't we'll see what we have out of him, but I'm not completely sold on him just yet. I like what he did last year, and obviously he was a really fun story, seeing what, happened last year. And, just he was the brightest spot on a team that lost its star cornerback in Jalen Ramsey, like a fan favorite. You had Tom Coughlin out there just being a idiot, to put into nice words, and then just having like the worst 5-game stretch a team has had since the Buccaneers in the late 70s. I mean, Gardner Minshew was the bright spot on the team. And quick shout out to Aaron Flo for the $20 donation. Yo, man, I watch every video. You're about the only constant flow of Jaguar content. Keep it up, bro. Duval, oh yeah, shout out your top running back prospects and where I can grab a shirt. Haha. But yeah, man, one guy I'm gonna give a shout out to. I don't think your information's in the bottom of this video. It was on the previous stream I had, but this went live on another stream. But you can find Jason, the black screen over here, at Another Jags Pod. He's on YouTube. He puts out a lot of content there. He's also on Twitter. Jason, let them know where else they can find you at.
Yeah, just basically Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Just search Another Jags Pod. It's the only thing that comes up. But yeah, I basically just do film breakdowns. I'm a big film junkie. I used to coach football for a number of years, so I really love the X's and O's of the game. But been a fan of yours for a long time now.
Yeah, man, it's good. He does a lot of film review. I don't really do as much film review on here. Whenever I do it, it just seems boring to me, and it's not really my style. I've never really been a coach. I've never played the game of football past the freshman football level, and I know I watch your videos and you're super in depth on it. You got a good background with it. So if you guys want some good film content, I'm sure you're probably going to be doing film reviews on everybody that the Jaguars draft. So definitely hit his channel. He's at 272 subscribers right now. Let's see if we can get him to 300 on this stream. I'll go ahead and I'm going to share the link to your channel down below.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's go.
And let's see. All right, I shared his channel. So let's get him to 300 followers, subscribers, whatever you want to call it right now. And by the way, you guys can get a shirt of mine down in the description box. It's a great way to support the channel. And like Jason said, they're very comfortable. I definitely spent a little bit on getting quality, and you see a Jaguar autograph with it. There's a lot of good stuff that comes with it. But Aaron also asked, who are your top running back prospects? I'll let you answer this one, Jason.
Ooh, okay, all right. So first of all, I'm gonna just tell you straight off the bat. A lot of people think that people try to guess what team I root for in college because they try to say I sway one way or another. I will say I have a background as a Gator fan, although didn't go to UF, so I'm not gonna beat that drum too hard. That being said, my number one running back out of this year's draft is from Florida State. I know Cam Akers isn't high on a lot of GM's draft boards. He's projected to be a third-round pick, but I really like Cam Akers. I watch a lot of Florida State games, and the way that he played, he played behind one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen, and the dude played amazing. He's good in the pass game, he's good in the run game, and just overall, he's a really good running back. I like what I see out of DeAndre Swift because he's been a guy from Georgia who's been in the spotlight for a while, and people have kind of been expecting him to be the next Georgia running back. So DeAndre Swift is a good player, but he may sneak into the second round. He's got a lot of players. And then Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, everyone's huge on him because he had an amazing combine and he had 2,000-yard season with Wisconsin. But those three guys, I don't know. I mean, look, with the Fournette thing, it's hard to know what they're going to do. Dave Caldwell is playing everything pretty close to the chest, which makes it hard for people like us to speculate what's going to happen. But we'll definitely break down the film once they make their picks for sure.
Yeah, there you go. I know one guy I like because the way I look at it right now is I'm sitting here okay, Fournette, he was an absolute beast in high school. He was the top prospect in the nation, 5-star guy, and then he goes on to LSU, completely dominates, that level, just destroying defensive backs. I'm almost at the point right now where how sometimes your team does something and then it doesn't really work out, so you want to go another direction. I'm almost at the point where I'm you know what? I almost want to get a running back that is not super athletically gifted or physically gifted. A guy that was like a 2-star prospect coming out of high school and had to kind of like work his way up. I mean, one guy I like the LSU running back right now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He doesn't have the breakaway speed that Maurice Jones-Drew had, but I love it's almost nice to have shorter running backs just because their level of, the level of gravity is a little bit shorter, so their hips are lower, so they're able to kind of stay upright a little faster. They're almost able to kind of see holes open up a little bit more. They're able to kind of sneak through. So there's a lot of really good running back prospects in this draft. I wouldn't draft any in the first or second round. I'd be willing to get someone in the third round if Swift or Cam Akers or whoever is available. But that's one of the guys that I like. But with you, would you be willing to spin one of our first 2 round, or obviously not the number 9 pick, but in the second round, for example, would you be willing to spin our second round pick on a running back?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, unless they get somewhere in the late second round, no. I mean, there's just too much value for positions outside of running back. I'm a fan of, and this has blown my mind. I mean, think about this as a Jaguar fan. When's the last time the Jags had a 2-headed monster at running back? You think about it.
I know when the last time.
I mean, Maurice Jones-Drew and Brad Taylor. I mean, you got to think back that far. I mean, every other team has a receiving back and then a running back, or a scat back and a power back. The Jags have never done that in the last decade. It makes no sense to me. Basically, why haven't we prioritized running back 2 when on so many teams running back 2 is a very, very important position? You don't have to draft them high, but you definitely have to get a guy that can contribute. So for me, I wouldn't want one in the second round, but I would be cool with taking a 3rd round running back and a 4th round running back, because I think it's important to have depth at that position.
No, it's funny that you say that we haven't really concentrated on that. And one thing, everyone kind of talks about Dave Caldwell never being able to bring in a tight end, but he's tried to bring in other running backs, but they've all failed. You know what I mean? And we signed Toby Gerhart back in I think it was 2014. In 2013. In 2014, in 2015 we drafted TJ Yeldon in the second round. In 2016 we signed Chris Ivory to a pretty big deal. In 2017 we drafted Leonard Fournette in the top 5. And even that didn't pan out the way we really wanted it to. And, obviously in 2019, we brought in, in 2018, we traded for Carlos Hyde. That didn't work out. 2019, we go and, what are we doing? No, we get Ryquell Armstead. That wasn't really much of an investment. But, Caldwell has swung and missed on running backs more than I can ever seen, and low key, no one talks about it, but he cannot hit on this running back spot.
You really can't. I mean, Ryquell Armstead. I mean, I know a lot of people are big on him, but if you look at his film, the dude didn't play one snap in the I formation in college. He was all out of spread every single snap. I mean, that doesn't usually translate to the NFL unless you're going to have him as a strictly receiving back. And I mean, the Jags used Fournette a lot this year in the receiving game. I think he had almost 400 yards, something like that. But I mean, they only used him. If Ryquell Armstead gave you anything, they would have brought him into the game. And I understand that they tried with Hyde and they tried with Ivory, but I mean, those were all the same back as Fournette. Look at the Patriots, man. They always have a receiving back that's tearing teams up. That's not a traditional running back. Go out and get a receiving back, get you a running back, and then get you a back who can block on 3rd down. Every other team does it. I feel like sometimes the Jags try to outsmart the league, and they end up outsmarting themselves.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And quick shout out to David Bryan for the $5 donation. He's also a member of the channel. He says, who will the Jags pick in the second round? Wide receiver or defensive back? I'll let you kind of take this one first.
Well, Dave traditionally has liked receivers in the second round.
Receivers and tackles.
Yeah. I mean, and this draft specifically has a lot of depth at both those positions. There's we can speculate, but I'm just telling you it's going to be wrong because I don't know what Caldwell's thinking. I don't know if he's drafting for his job or if he's drafting for the future. And so unless we know that information, it's hard to know. We don't know what's going on. I would assume he's drafting for his job, which leads me to believe that he'll draft a receiver in the second round because he hit Chark 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I don't. I mean, obviously, a lot has to do with what we do with our first couple picks. Like I said in a video I made earlier this week. Like I really feel like Jaguars, and I'm not someone that says, oh, the Jaguars need to go running or need to go tackle this pick this round. They need to go wide receiver this round. I'm not someone that really thinks like that. But when I look at it, like I think in the first round, we have two picks. Obviously, I think the Jaguars will come away with two out of these three. I think they're gonna either get a cornerback, either get a offensive tackle, like a left tackle to come in, or I think they're going to get a defensive lineman. Like I feel like that's somehow gonna happen, and maybe they end up with Kinlaw at 9. Maybe they end up with like a Fulton at number 20, or some kind of combination. The dream almost for me is somehow if we get Derek Brown at number 9, and then we get CJ Henderson somehow falls to number 20. I don't really see that happening. If like we wind up reaching for CJ Henderson at number 9, I could see maybe us getting that defensive end out of LSU. I forget his name, but he's kind of like an Ngakoue. He's kind of a speed rusher. I think he's a big sack guy. Maybe not help out in the run game as much, but I don't know. Like when it comes to the second round, I think receiver could be a good option. Obviously, that's going to be off the table if we get a Jerry Jeudy. But I mean, the Jaguars are in a position where really there is no position the Jaguars could not afford to upgrade at. Maybe linebacker. Maybe they don't spend an early pick at a linebacker. But other than that, what spot is completely safe? We always need to upgrade the offensive line. The right guard has been a need for I don't even know how long. Defensive line. The defensive line is bad right now. The back five when it comes to defensive backs, it's not great. I mean, we could do so much really in this draft, and that's what's so fascinating about it. And obviously this being a virtual draft, that'll be another interesting thing. But all I know is, man, I'm fired up for it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a DN that not a lot of people are talking about is the DN from Penn State. Yader Gross Matos. I could be mispronouncing his name.
Yeah.
But, dude, his film he's a nasty DN. I mean, he is going to be a good player for some team somewhere. And that's a guy that might be there at 20. And, again, I don't know what they're going to do. I would love for them to draft a receiver or, a big-name player like that. But as far as CJ Henderson goes, I don't think he's there at 20, and I don't think he's a top 10 draft worthy. So I like CJ Henderson, but I don't think he fits anywhere the Jags are picking.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Unless they do the trade back, I don't know who they trade back with. And we every year we talk about Jaguars trading back, but it's never happened in the first round. Dave Caldwell's never moved up or down in the first round. And Chill Switch said K'Lavon Chason is the LSU pass rusher. Yeah, that's one guy that I wouldn't mind at 20. But he also mentions AJ Epinesa out of Iowa. That I really do like him at defensive end. I think he would be really good opposite of Josh Allen. He's a big old dude. He's powerful. He could really set the edge when it comes to the rush game. I don't know if you've watched him at all, but he's I really like some of his film.
Yeah, no, I liked him too. He's if it's between me and the Penn State DN, I'm taking Yetter from Penn State. I'm not really sure where all the AJ Espinoza love comes from. I mean, he's a solid player, a really good player, but I mean, nothing that really stands out about his game. Is he think about? I mean, who's going to be there now? If Ngakoue's not playing, you're looking at Smoot playing over there.
Yeah, it'd be Smoot, and then whoever else would have a defensive end.
I mean, you think they want to upgrade there, but it could be a pick there. I think I'm not big on Espenza, me personally, but I'm wrong a lot, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean we all have our own takes. And I know from what I've seen, he just seems like a big, powerful dude. I think that he could set the edge well. Maybe he comes in at number 20, but I just know with me, if we take anybody outside of defensive line at number 9, I just and if we were to come out of the first round without any defensive linemen, I mean, man, wouldn't that be? I wouldn't. I would just feel so uncomfortable with the way our defensive line looks, at that moment.
Unless you switch to a 3-4 and just roll with 3 D linemen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's always. I mean, as teams spread out more, I mean, I think sooner or later everybody's gonna be running the 3-4.
I mean, it's really, I mean, like you said earlier, Josh Allen was in a lot of stand up, Ngakoue was in a lot of stand up last year. You can call it 3-4, 4-3, all you want, but in reality, I'm telling you, as someone that knows the defensive line techniques and the pre snap alignments, every team does a variation and a hybrid of both. So it doesn't really matter. People get too caught up. The two D linemen we signed in free agency, Rodney Gunter and the D tackle from Seattle, they're both like 3-4 guys, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, we got another Jags pod at 288 subscribers, guys. Get him 12 more. Get him at 300. Film reviews for days. They're all coming at you.
I love it, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. But I got some people asking about memberships, guys. You can become members. I think you do it on your desktop. You basically hit the join button. You guys get all kinds of exclusive member-only perks. Right now, I have 4 people signed up. There's 3 different tiers. There's a Cub level for $2.99, Big Cat level for $4.99, and then Pride of UC Jaguar for $9.99. So all of it has its own unique perks, so you guys can join that down below. A bunch of cool content coming in that manner. And then we can go ahead and start answering some questions kind of for the next 10-15 minutes before we close it out. So how about OG Broken Game says, if Okuda drops to us or Brown is taken, Henderson then take Mayta. I don't know, that one was a mouthful. But do you think there's any chance that Okuda falls to number 9?
No, I don't. Okuda is the real deal. I honestly wasn't a big believer until I watched his film, but then after watching his film, he looks like Patrick Peterson. I mean, he's not as big as Jalen Ramsey and not as boisterous, but he's a little bit smaller version of Jalen Ramsey. He is never out of position. He's very fluid. He's going to be a good corner in the league for a long time. Very, very good player. There's no way he lasts until 9. Will the Jags trade up to get him? That's something that I would be in favor of. But at 9, there's no way he falls there.
Yeah, and honestly, if I'm going to trade up for a cornerback, me personally, I would rather, make sure our defensive line is good just so we know that, because if a quarterback is there all day back in the pocket, they're going to be able to find somebody eventually. And, right now I don't feel comfortable with our defensive line. I don't feel comfortable enough to trade away draft assets to move up to get, a guy like that. But, especially moving up in the top 10, you got to trade a good amount of assets to be able to move around. So I don't know if for him, obviously if Chase Young were somehow fall to 4 or 5, then I'd be picking up the, phone, making a bunch of calls. But, I don't know. I can understand, moving up for Kuda, and he's a great player, but I just don't think he gets out of the top 5, me personally.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And Chase Young doesn't either. And honestly, I think that you're talking about Derek Brown is probably realistic. That's who might be there. But no, I wish, but unless they trade up, there's no way.
I honestly don't have I have a feeling that Derek Brown will not be there. I think the real X factor in this whole draft for the Jags, pending, it stays the way it is, no trades in the top 10. I think Carolina is going to somehow scoop our guy. Carolina has a lot of similar needs. They're a team that needs cornerbacks. They're a team that needs defensive tackles. There can even be a team that goes and takes an offensive tackle that we've been kind of eyeing. So, I think they could even take Isaiah Simmons too, especially with Luke Kuechly no longer being on the team. So I don't know. That's just kind of my feel on it.
I think Carolina actually, because they brought in some offensive-minded guys, Matt Rule and Joe Brady. Watching LSU and the way they ran their offense last year, I think that Carolina will try to do the same thing. And given they have Christian McCaffrey, and I think they're going to go out and get them a quarterback, honestly. I think they'll trade up, and I think they'll get Tua, or I think they'll end up getting Herbert, or they're going to want someone to run Joe Brady's offense. And if not that, at least some receivers that can make plays the way that LSU's offense did last year. But that's just what I'm thinking. Who really knows?
Yeah, I got some people asking if the case comes where Tua falls to number 9, would you pull the trigger on that?
Oh, man, that's a tough question because you know at 9, if Tua's still there, there's going to be some teams trying to trade up to get him. So you would not only be taking a risk on a quarterback with a pretty serious injury last year, but you're also going to probably be turning down a bunch of trades or a bunch of picks later in the first round. But personally, I like Tua. I mean, pre-injury, Tua was probably going to be the second pick in this year's draft. Nick Saban, if you watch his little film breakdowns on ESPN, has said that Tua is one of the most accurate quarterbacks he's ever coached. I mean, that's some pretty high praise from a guy like Nick Saban. So me personally, I would be cool with Tua, but given having to turn down probably a top 20 pick for Tua as well, that would be tough to do if it were me.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, like it's so hard with Tua, and the case could very well fall where he falls to number 9. For a couple reasons. Like no one really has a medical on him, so a lot of teams may not be willing to risk a top 10 pick on him, and but it could be so hard because I am so tired of revisiting drafts and saying, oh, in 2017 the Jaguars took Fournette over Mahomes and Watson. In 2018 we took Taven Bryan over. They took Taven Bryan over Lamar Jackson, and I would just hate if Tua turns out to be like this real deal quarterback where he's just dominating, and it just adds to the list where we drafted this bust over Tua. So I don't know. Like I wouldn't mind if they took him. I'd probably be pretty excited they took him, but there's a reason why I'm not a GM making millions of dollars. I don't have to make those decisions, but man, like I it's hard to really know what my reaction will be when we draft, just because like when it's draft and you see Roger Goodell walking to the podium with the Jaguars thing in the background, like you can't control your emotions. You don't know what's going to come out, and I don't know how I would feel if we somehow got Tua at number 9.
I mean, honestly, the biggest thing about Caldwell is that he does things that no one expects. So, honestly, Fournette, Jalen Ramsey, both those picks were pretty like, okay, we expected those. But everyone else was like, what? Bortles, the picks Josh Allen, that came out of nowhere. Taven Bryan, these picks are usually not what you're expecting. So that'll probably happen this year too, and it'll be someone that we don't expect.
Yeah, and that generally tends to happen with the Jaguars. Last couple of years, Taven Bryan in 2018, that was a total really weird pick. 2019, we never even talked about Josh Allen at number 7, or else it wouldn't have been such a weird pick. And the case may be like, I think the case will happen on Thursday where a guy falls. A guy that's projected, that's been mocked in the top 5, 6. All of a sudden, whether it be Derek Brown, whether it be Isaiah Simmons, maybe even a rare chance where like Akuda falls, or maybe even they get like a guy like Jerry Jeudy or one of these top offensive tackle prospects. But I think something will happen, and draft day is always crazy, and I just have a feeling that Jaguars will do something crazy. What I'm saying, in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, for sure. It's quarterback. There's usually a quarterback run that happens, and there's usually an offensive tackle run that happens. So we could be in play for both of those. How often does the second best quarterback end up going to 9? Usually teams end up trading into the top 10 to get like the third or fourth best quarterback. So there could be a guy, like you said, available there that the Jags weren't expecting.
So I'll just end it with this. Jaguars first round, what is your most ideal scenario for the Jaguars at pick number 9 and pick number 20?
Okay, for me, ideal would be to Isaiah Simmons, somehow package your trades and trade up for Isaiah Simmons. I think he's a freak. I love freaks on defense, and I want athletes on my defense. Realistically, though, I think they end up taking Derek Brown or like a Jerry Jeudy, which I'm okay with because they're both needs. It's hard to miss at number 9. At 20, I think they go with either D-line or receiver, whichever one they didn't pick in the first round. So whether that best player available, whether it's Christian Fulton, C.J. Henderson at DB, or it's one of these like later receivers I mean, trading back in to get Henry Ruggs would be ideal, but that for me, that's who it is.
Like, I think for me, the most ideal situation is, like, when I look at the team, I mean, you have to build the foundation of the team, and the foundation is in the trenches. So, I mean, I would love to get Derek Brown at number 9. I just think that I don't think that he'll be a bust. I think that he would be a high impact player. I think he's a little bit underrated when it comes to, like, his pass rush. Like, we've seen him do some things that, he's just a mammoth of a man. He's just a big dude, and I think he'll be really good. And then at pick number 20, I mean, if we can get like a left tackle like Andrew Thomas or something like that out of Georgia, something like that I think would be extremely good. We really build up the trenches a lot. We get a really good run stuffer in there at defensive tackle that should be able to absorb double teams and block down running lanes. You get a really good left tackle where maybe you can move Cam Robinson around. I don't think that he's going to earn a second contract with the Jaguars. Maybe we can try to salvage him and maybe try him out at like right guard or something like that. It probably won't work out, but hey, it's his last year of his contract on Jaguars. What do we really have to lose? So I mean, really with that, I'll be very excited if that happens. But I could see a bunch of different things happening, but that's kind of how I feel.
Well, it'll definitely be exciting either way because we'll have some new blood to talk about and look at how they'll adjust to the team, and hopefully we'll have a sense of direction of where we're going after the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to close it off there, man. Thank you guys all for joining. We had over 100 people in pretty much a whole stream. Shout out to all the super chats. I really appreciate that. And, if you are not following Jason from Another Jags Pod, I'm going to. He's at 296 subscribers. I want to get him at 300, for coming on here and, doing this live stream with me. I really appreciate it. And, yeah, man, Jason, excited about Thursday, man. 2 days away.
Yeah, man, for sure, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man.
Of course, man. And I'll talk to you guys. Unless something crazy happens tomorrow, I'll probably see you guys Thursday with live streams, with reactions, all that different stuff. So I'll see you guys later.